you. Sorry for the delay, everybody. Welcome. I just want to thank Ryan in the back for helping us video. In case your parents don't believe you're actually here at the high school, I want to make that public. So just, again, Ryan, it goes back to the trust but verify concept. So the Open Public Meeting Statement, in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, 1975 announcement, I wish to announce the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the school districts of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the administrative offices, sent to the clerks of the Chatham Borough and the Chatham Township, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, the Star Ledger, and the TAP. Mr. Turquillo, would you mind taking attendance?
Sure. Mr. Gilfillan, Ms. Ciccarelli,
Here.
Ms. Clark,
Here.
Ms. Kenny, Mr. Ryan,
Here.
Mr. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Valenti,
Here.
and Ms. Weber.
Here.
Mr. Arnick is here too.
Well, not
I'm gonna
yet.
swear you in first.
Not yet. You're a civilian. You still have time to leave. Is the positive side on this is that you can get out the door quickly.
Oh, we handcuffed him to the
That's right.
table.
If you're able, can you please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent. So now we're going to move on to the swearing in of Mr. Arnock.
As I announced, the last meeting in January, obviously, after it's a slight bit of a delay after the November election, but the newly elected members were sworn in, of which we did with Matt Gilfillan and Mike Valenti in January, and obviously Mr. Arnock was also on the ballot from the township, so we'll just follow procedure this evening. You want to cheat a little bit to make it easier? Do you want to recite or you want to repeat after me?
I'll recite. Whenever you're ready. I, Sal Arnick, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same and to the governments established in the United States and this state under the authority of the people. So help me God. I, Sal Arnick, do solemnly swear that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law for the office of member of a Board of Education and am not disqualified as a voter pursuant to RS 19-4-1, and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform all the duties of that office according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Thank you, Sal. Congratulations.
Thank you, Peter.
You gotta sign this. Let the record show we now have 7 board members present.
Welcome back.
Excellent. Welcome back aboard, Sal. Excellent.
Missed you.
So next on the agenda is a board president's comments. I didn't prepare anything because I thought at the last meeting maybe I'd be voted out and Ann would be giving the president's comments, but that didn't happen, so I did not prepare any comments. So moving right along, Dr. LaSousa, we're going to toss the ball over to you.
Thank you, Ms. Weber. I have a few items that have come together and don't necessarily appear on the agenda. The first is an update on enrollment and our kindergarten registration, first grade registration processes. At this point, we've completed the initial window of registration for kindergarten. We've registered roughly the same number of students currently this year as we had at this time last year. We also are beginning the first grade registration process and continuing to enroll students just whose parents are completing the paperwork and who intend to enroll them for next year. At this point, given... Yep. I'll speak up. At this point, given the registrations that we've had as well as the current enrollment, we are projecting that we are able to, again, have a full-day kindergarten tuition-based lottery program at Milton Avenue and Washington Avenue schools, and also bring on board one full-day section, again, lottery tuition-based at Southern Boulevard School. So if we do that, we would have one section of full-day kindergarten at each of the 3 elementary schools. We would be able to move away from trying to shift students from the Southern Boulevard region over to Milton Avenue region, which has caused some just some logistical difficulties for some parents. So our intention, assuming that the board is comfortable with it, would be to prepare for a full day section at each of the 3 pre-K through 3 buildings, advertise that this month, and then hold the drawing in the beginning of March, which is what we did last year, and notify families as early as we can of their acceptance into the program.
And how large are the sections? Can you remind me how many students you're taking in each?
Last year we set the number at 24. I know that the principals would not mind if we reduced that slightly, so we're discussing whether it would be 24 or maybe 23.
Okay.
It will be one or the other.
It'll be early March, and are you changing the parameters a little bit? For example, if a family has twins or triplets or quads, I don't know if we have any quads in town, but if one gets in, they all get in? Is that the...
Yes, that is what we did last year, but
Okay.
you're jogging my memory because we had an unusual case
That was not by
relative
accident.
to
jog
something
your
last year that I couldn't remember. And it had to do with twins or higher order multiples. And I have to
just
review
want-
my notes and my emails from last year.
Yeah, I
just
just
to
want that
remember if
outlined,
there was anything
outlined in the
unusual.
procedure. Again, if one gets in, they both get in, or do they go in on one ticket? However you work it
Mhm.
out. I just don't want any confusion, and we end up with 26 kids in a section because it was triplets, and you can't really separate them.
Yes, good point. Thank you for remembering that.
How are we articulating enrollment? Like, should we get a spike in enrollment? And for our half-day kindergarten, that is our priority, that we have to accommodate every half-day student. And can you remind the board, how did we, so we obviously did the lottery, you're accepted into the full-day program. Let's say we got an increased enrollment over the summer, we had to add another break a section, whether it's an AM or PM section at any given school, we now need a classroom.
Yes.
So how do we communicate that? And I think that has to be communicated effectively.
Well, first and foremost, once we hold the lottery and inform parents that their child has been accepted, we would not go back on that. We will commit to that full day section, and we don't think it's fair to parents to let them know in June or July, let's just say, if we've had a lot of new enrollment, that, oh, sorry, we can't run the program now. Once we do it, we're committing to it. I've met with all of the pre-K through 3 principals about what would happen if we had an unanticipated surge in enrollment at any grade level, and each of you needed to find an additional classroom in your school, and each of them was able to identify some kind of plan to accommodate an additional classroom if necessary. Now, the plan isn't ideal. So, for example, where we have, in one school, we may have health right now being taught in a classroom, but 5 years ago, that may have been taught on the stage in the multipurpose room because we didn't have classroom space to devote to it. We may have to revert to that if we were in a real pinch in a certain building. But all of the principals, I asked the question very directly, do you think that the benefits of being able to offer at least one section of full-day kindergarten outweigh having to juggle some classrooms if we are short on space? And every one of them believes so, yes.
I just want to make sure that a tuition-based program is not at the expense of our enrolling half-day AM, PM kindergarten population. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions for Mike on kindergarten, full-day kindergarten? And the staffing's the same, or is it up a half a head count? Or is it too soon?
We are still working out staffing implications.
Okay.
The second item that I have is we've talked about school calendars for the year 2021, 2022. I've placed in your folder a number of calendars, just draft ideas. None of them are set in stone. None of them are, they should be in your folders anyway. None of them are ones we'd have to adopt, but it's for you to take a look at, get a feel for. We've discussed potentially beginning the school year earlier in August and then ending the year earlier in June, closer to Memorial Day. That is reflected in a number of the calendars. So I placed them there for you. You may discuss them if you would like to under board business. You can hold them till the next meeting because we're still, way ahead of the game, further along than we usually are in terms of evaluating calendars for the year after next. but I have those available for you.
Yeah, I would like to discuss them a little bit further. One, to talk about Election Day, and one, to talk a little bit further about the advantages of starting school a little bit earlier, which may give us a little bit more opportunity to put the February break back in, which I know a lot of folks have been asking about, especially as flu season's upon us. And also talk about graduation, you know, how late we want to go into the year, because that's also not ideal. So if we can just table that until board business.
Sure.
I have them all here, highlighted and circled and glossy colors and, okay.
And the
Okay,
third
okay.
item for me is that I know the coronavirus that is circulating throughout the world has been on the minds of many people, many parents. I've received a number of emails about that. We did receive guidance today from the Department of Health and the Department of Education. I've forwarded that guidance to parents and staff members. Our nursing staff is well aware of the guidance, and we're putting into effect all of the recommendations and protocols that are outlined in those documents. You can look at them at your leisure. Also wanted to mention that I inadvertently referred to the virus in part based on the city in which it originated. I shouldn't have done that. I don't want to ever appear insensitive to any city or group of people who are dealing with such a challenge and a terrible situation. So I do apologize for doing that. I've since sent out a correction just using the technical term of the coronavirus, and will continue to do that in any future correspondence I have about any measures the school district needs to take moving forward.
Excellent. Does anybody have any questions for Mike on any of those topics? I'm sure your son will explain to you the error of your ways, since he's into Chinese and immersion, and that's his sport of choice.
That's true.
So you'll be hearing it from him when you get home. No other questions, Peter, for a business administrator report? Mr. DeCola?
Sure, I just wanted to update the board. We've had notice from one of the residents that they have repeatedly seen people walking dogs on Cougar Field, sometimes on leashes,
Thank you.
sometimes not on leashes, and that these residents of either Chatham, Madison, or wherever they're coming from have been letting the dogs on the turf field and on the track, which is a definite no-no and not good for health reasons. The district will be upping its signage to have signs posted all around every entrance to any part of the, the track field, which means the dog shouldn't be anywhere near the bleachers at all, saying that there's no dogs allowed on the field, and dogs are prohibited and against health violation. So we will be upping our signage. I don't know how else to combat that other than signs, unless the board wants to authorize me to have the turf area and track locked. So the only way to get it is if you want to climb the fence. But, I leave that to you. I know that.
Which is what a lot of other schools do. They do lock their fields, which we don't want to do. Is there no other way to enforce that? The only
Hire a police officer to sit there, because
Yeah, we're not doing
a
that.
civilian, I'm sure that if I went down there and sat there, and I'd probably start an argument with a resident that don't bring your dog on the field, and I'm going to say, who the heck are you? I'm not listening to you.
Well, I can attest to that personally, because somebody let their dog urinate on the middle school field, and I told the guy, you can't have your girls are about to play a soccer game here. The dog's peeing and pooping, and he told me to basically go to hell and mind my own business. Short of calling the cops and getting into a ruckus about it. But again, one of the staff members, I was at a field hockey game, and there was literally dog poop on the field. They had to stop the game. I hate to say this right at this particular moment, but the athletic director was there. He had to go clean up, dog poop. Really hate to say it in this particular meeting, but it was embarrassing. We stopped. So the only way to help enforce it is if the residents enforce it themselves. If you see somebody with a dog inside the field, we just have to keep asking them to not do that. There is poop on the track right now. As soon as you're round the bend by the flagpole, there's poop on the track as we speak right now. So if you want to go see it, it's there. I saw it 2 days ago. I'm sure it's not cleaned up. The residents have to help enforce it. I don't think anybody on this board wants to lock the field. The residents pay for it. The residents should use it. We need to use the fields. But we have to be vigilant. And if we want to protect the asset, 10 years from now, I won't be sitting in the seat, but somebody's going to say, why do we have to replace the turf field again? Why do we have to replace the track? Because it was abused Why does Del Barton not have to replace theirs for 20 years? Because 10 kids use it once a season, and it's locked up all the rest of the time. So please help us be vigilant to protect our assets. The track, the field, the turf fields, it's a hygiene issue. If the dog is loose and bites a kid, it's a liability issue. So if you can help enforce that, signage is great, Peter, make it big. I mean, we'll do the best we can, but if you see folks, ask them to take the dog outside. There's plenty of grass. You're not supposed to have a dog on the field, but please let it be on the grass side, not inside the track or the turf. I know it's a nice fenced-in area. The dog can't get away, but it's a nice fenced-in area because it's an athletic field. So when is the signage coming in?
It's been ordered, so as soon as it gets delivered, it will be put up the day we receive it.
You said it, but there's like 50 or 60 of them, right? Signs?
Yeah, we're coming. We're going to put it this way. You're going to be hard-pressed to miss it
All
because
right.
there will be on each of the entrances, the entrance on the path that leads from the field houses, the entrance that comes up the ramp,
Right.
the entrance in the back. If you were coming up from the grass field, they'll be posted out on, on Shunpike, to know technically, if you want to follow the ordinance, the ordinance, the dog shouldn't even be allowed on the grass field.
Right, I understand.
Any kind of school property, you shouldn't have any dogs on it.
Yeah, no,
When I look
understand.
out my window from my office, I see people walking the dogs behind the high school.
Right.
And the dogs are running free.
Understood.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Maybe when we put the signs up, we can send out a reminder just to our school community who subscribes to the email. Just say, just a reminder, that other than service animals, no animals are permitted on school grounds, or our fields. And it kind of will get the conversation started. It could very well be people that don't have kids in school, but we can at least go from there, and it'll kind of maybe get people thinking. If they see it, maybe they'll say, please don't bring your dog here.
Or a Facebook post, that seems to get attention.
Or as Mike said, feel free to take some pictures and post them
And post
of
them.
people with their dogs.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Peter. Keep us posted on that as springtime rolls around. The field is being just used as warm-up, for residents right now, but in a couple of weeks, it's going to be pretty busy.
The other one, I just want to update on the middle school auditorium. The substantial completion date is a week and a half away on February 14th. The catwalk has all been completed. The stage rigging is almost completed and should be done, by Wednesday. The seats have all been delivered and are sitting inside the auditorium. The installation has started, was starting today in the balcony, and then once they finish the balcony, they will work on the main area so that they need access to the stage to house some of the parts to do the main area. So, and the seats are supposed to be done in 7 days. They were supposed to be done by Friday. I would presume, since they can't do the main area, that'll be into the beginning of next week, but should be well in time for the substantial completion. I spoke to the contractor today. They passed the preliminary inspections. The inspector's coming back to do above ceiling, and then once the seats are in, they can do the final inspections.
Okay. Is there flooring still that has to go down?
The only flooring that has to go down is the carpet runner in the aisle where there will be, in the aisles. And he's waiting to do that because he's not sure if some tile will need to be cut because of the way the seats lay.
Right.
Because he doesn't want to have to piece the carpet.
Okay.
So
And is there lighting along those aisles similar to?
I
Or-
have to check
under the
on that. I
chairs?
believe there is, but I have to double check.
Okay,
I
no
know
worries.
there's lighting. All the other lighting has been done.
Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any additional questions for Peter on any of the construction? Or the fields? No? All good? Okay. Moving along to committee reports. Mrs. Ciccarelli for personnel.
We met just briefly prior to this meeting, just to go over some personnel changes, and we will be meeting next Monday, correct?
Yes.
The 10th.
Okay, great. Curriculum sitting in for Ms. Kenny. Ms. Clark.
Curriculum has not met since our last meeting, and our next meeting is March 2nd.
Second. Finance and facilities sitting in for Mr. Gilfillan. Mr. Ryan.
Yep, Finance and Facilities met before this meeting, number of topics on the agenda. We started the 2020-21 budget process. It does not look like we'll be enjoying any waivers for enrollment or healthcare, so we're starting at the 2% level once again. We talked about some capital work that we look to be able to perform using capital reserve. We talked about signage on the track for the dogs.
Oh, great.
We talked about the district name. We probably need to talk about that in board business if you'd like,
Okay.
Ms. Weber. We talked about the referendum language for the survey, enrollment, lights at Cougar Field. The issue that we have at Cougar Field with the lights is that Cougar Field is about 36 acres, and about 3 acres belong to Madison. So about 15 years ago, there were some legal battles back and forth about whether or not to put up lights. So we have to kind of re-engage in that discussion with some attorneys and see if there's a quick fix that we can
Okay.
figure out, and decide if we want to put lights up on Friday nights anyway.
Okay. Will that come up in policy in deeper detail? Not the finance of it, just the,
It probably will. I think we have to, Dr. LaSousa is going to speak to some folks on the legal side to see what steps we would have to go through to even re-engage in the conversation.
okay. And Mike, would you re-engage the Bergen County attorneys, since they're most familiar with the case law? Or at least the more recent case law?
And the last item was we're continuing to monitor the proposed housing developments
Okay,
as
great.
they move forward.
That's it for finance?
That's it for finance.
Do you have a timeline, Mike, on the referendum survey? Do you know about when, rough estimates?
It's pretty much done. Yeah.
I'm going to finalize it based on the feedback from the committee over the next week or so.
Okay.
Then send it to all of you to make sure there are no questions or concerns, and then we can get it up on our website and out to the community members and gather feedback.
Okay, so probably by the end of the month, it should be up and
Yes.
out to the community? And is there an optimal timeline? You keep it up for a week, 10 days, 2 weeks?
I'll review what we did last time round.
Okay.
I know that last time, I think it wasn't until May or June maybe that we started really publicizing which projects were going to be placed on the ballot.
Okay,
The board had decided before then, but the publicity came out late spring, and we held a few informational sessions because we were talking about instructional spaces mainly with that referendum.
okay.
So we'll aim to get the survey completed, if you will, by the end of this month, have maybe even all of March for feedback, and then that would leave you the April, May time period to digest it, sort it out, and determine which projects you actually want to place on the ballot.
Okay. Do you think we need to have any info sessions prior to the survey going out? I'm gonna more look toward Mike Ryan. You're closer to this way closer than I
I
am.
think it's pretty straightforward. I think we
Okay.
should all review it once the questions are finalized.
Okay.
After input from the.
Yeah, I read it. The problem is we're so intimately involved in it. You know, all of the projects that are on it. You know, we've been talking about them for years. You know, upgrading the track, upgrading the Cougar Fieldhouse. You know, roofing. My concern is personally, I'm just so close to it. I'm not reading it as objectively, and I don't have any questions because I've been talking about it for the last 8 years. I'm just curious if somebody else read it, would they have the same, you know?
I went over it with Mike and put an objective
Okay.
eye to it for sure.
Okay.
Everyone else is welcome to do that once we complete the questions. I think everyone should look at it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
opine.
Also, it was the first time I had seen it, other
Okay.
than Friday when Dr. LaSousa sent it around. So I definitely looked at it with an objective eye as well.
Okay, perfect. Excellent.
Yeah.
One thing I would ask is when it does go live, that we send several reminders out so people get many opportunities to access it, because sometimes you get something in your email box and you're busy and you open it and you forget to go back to it. So I just think we need to give everyone opportunities and reminders that it's there and here's how to access it, so that we afford we get as much input as possible so we can make informed decisions.
Right, okay, excellent. And then, so more to file then, Mike, on the lights. I wasn't here for the last meeting where the light issue came up at Cougar, I also just want to remind everybody of the, there's also a financial expense to that. You have to have security, we have to have staff. Inevitably, unfortunately, a student gets in trouble and they get suspended. You know, they now know what they're writing their college essay on, you know, what I learned from my Cougar Night experience. So it's not just Friday night lights and the kids have a great time. You know, we've all experienced bad things unfortunately happen, you know. It's not intended, but, you know, they're teenagers.
Sure.
So there's also some other costs involved. And then they hire lawyers when we suspend their kid, and it gets ugly. So it's not just, do we want lights or not? There's also other trickle-down.
Yeah, of course. And I don't think we've made that decision yet, at least in the Finance Committee level.
Right.
We're just looking into what the issue is from a legal perspective.
From a legal,
To see,
before
if
even
we
gets
want to
yeah,
entertain
if
it.
we even want to, you know, if we want to start paying the Bergen County attorney, do we want to pursue it, you know?
I think it's a phone call
Okay.
that we're talking about at this point.
Okay. And maybe you can ask Mike or Peter, can you pull up how much Cougar Night costs us from a security point of view? Okay, great. Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Ryan, back to you. Sorry, on policy and planning.
Policy and Planning has not met since the last meeting. We are meeting on the 10th.
The 10th. Excellent. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for Mike on any of the finance or policy? Nope. Great. Thank you, Mike. Liaison reports, just for the borough, as Mr. Ryan just mentioned, just keeping an eye on the development in the borough. The borough council, I believe at last Monday's meeting, oh, hi Carolyn, sorry, had mentioned that they're going to slow down a bit on the process. I think pump the brakes was a term that was used. You know, they've not quantified what that means. Does it mean just take a quick look, or does it take another 3 years? But so there's no hard numbers to look at. Some people are upset. They heard a plan of, oh, you're going to put 5 stories in, 250. That was just one person that presented the borough plan, so that's not, nobody's voted on that. Certainly Carolyn could fill us in if I've missed anything, but we're just, as Mike Ryan said, we're just keeping an eye on the development. From a school perspective, it's irrelevant whether it's in the township or the borough. It all impacts one school district, so we need to keep a close eye on not just the numbers, but where are they coming from. Because the elementary schools, if you overwhelm one, then you have busing costs incurred to go to redistrict and then shift kids to others. So again, it's not strictly a numbers game, but we're just going to keep a close eye on that. Michelle, did you have anything on the township? Same. And just to be clear, Michelle and I and Carolyn and Stacy Ewald in the township, we're not doing this in a vacuum. We're not all going off into our little committee meetings and making decisions. We're, again, like I said, we're all trying to row in the same direction. We all live here. We all want what's best. We're all trying to deal. I know the township and the municipalities are dealing with legal, with the, affordable housing commitment. So nobody's hiding behind a closed door. I'd like to shout it from the rooftop. This is what we're worried about. We're worried about N number of students and the resources and busing and, oh gosh, so nobody's secretly hiding anything. Okay, athletic boosters, nothing to report. Performing arts, nothing to report. Chatham Education Foundation, Ms. Kenny's not here. Gilfillan's not here. And has the district cabinet meeting met?
No, we have a meeting scheduled for this Wednesday. I do want to mention for the performing arts boosters, just that the middle school had a very successful production.
Gosh, how did
I
I
got a
forget
lot of
that?
very, very positive feedback. I know you were there.
Yeah, it was
the first
fantastic.
night. Yeah, so
Yeah, it was great.
kudos to Mr. Stiles and the entire team. And they, of course, had to inconvenience themselves by having to stage it at the high school as opposed to the middle school. I think they made lemonade out of lemons, and they had a good time, and the kids were probably proud to be on the high school stage, even though it wasn't their home turf.
Yeah, it was great. The kids did a fantastic job. It looked like they were having a tremendous amount of fun. All the kids were great. The leads were fantastic. I can't wait to see them as they progress in their career. They really had a tremendous amount of stage presence. The sound went great. The lighting became again part of the show. It was a nice event.
I'm really sorry I didn't go.
It was great. What did you think, Mike?
I was pretty amazed at the level of obviously commitment, but the level of talent that some 8th graders have. It's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders have. It was a tremendous show.
It was
really
really
nice.
their stage presence really was
Yeah.
amazing. But thank you, Mike.
The poise that some of these kids have.
It was
amazing.
really astounding. You know, what are they, 12 and 11, 12, 13-year-olds? It's really amazing. Oh, there they are.
That's why they've got the poise and the presence. Part of the reason, anyway.
It was really fantastic. I got a little nervous when I read the program and it said like 32 songs. I'm like, oh my gosh, I've got to get to bed at some point. But it really, I mean, the music and the night, it just flew. It was fantastic. Sorry about that. Okay, minutes. Can I make a motion even though I wasn't there? I can motion but not vote. So I make a motion to pass the minutes of the public and executive sessions of January 13th. Sal and I have to abstain. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those abstain? Aye. Sal and I abstain.
Duly noted, pass 5-0-2.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, so moving on to public commentary. A hearing of the citizens during the public commentary section of the agenda is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are or are not topics scheduled for the current meeting. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers will be asked to limit their comments to a reasonable length of time. If you would form an orderly line, by the microphone, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself. And if there's no public commentary this section, there'll be another opportunity. In fact, why don't we just wait for the second public opportunity? Oh, go ahead, Mr. Heap. No, Bill, I was stalling. Mr. Heap is on his way.
Good evening, Bill Heap, Chatham Borough. First, a question. Is there going to be a student film festival this year? Yes. When?
February 26th.
That's my birthday.
At Roberts?
Out for you. The Roberts Center.
February 26th. Okay, good. Second question. How will you be reaching out to the community with these surveys about the referendum? To people who are not involved in the school. How are you going to handle that? If you can answer that now or later, that's fine. And the third thing is with regard to full-day kindergarten. I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again. I'm not sure why you feel the need to give people a bargain with regard to tuition. It seems to me at a fully loaded cost of $18,000, the tuition should start, at least the discussion should start at $9,000. We don't have to give anybody a bargain. People are coming here strictly to take advantage of the school system, and I'm sure that most of them are willing to pay that kind of money. It would certainly also allow more money for scholarships for those people who may not be able to afford it. A quick math calculation, if you have 60 students, 20 at each school, paying an extra $2,000, that's $120,000. That's 2 resource officers. You don't hesitate to come to the taxpayers for a referendum for money. You're not going to hesitate to go to the town for money with regard to the pilot projects or the pilots that might be in place from these projects that are taking place. So I'm not sure why it is that you feel that you need to undercharge for tuition. Let me just remind you that Morristown Beard is $36,000 for kindergarten. I think Kent Place is about $35,000. So at $9,000, we're a bargain, and it's found money. And I think that you ought to take advantage of that. And that's it. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Just one at a time. The referendum question, and then we could talk about. Don't go away, Bill, because I think your math is slightly off. No, you can go away over there. Just don't go home. Sometimes he leaves when there's a good game on. The referendum question, Mike, did you want to take that? How the outreach?
Well, obviously, the members of the community that have children in the district can easily get the referendum survey questions from us. One of the things we could do for the other folks is we can publish it in the paper.
Right.
Was we sent a hard copy. We sent like a one-page invitation letter, like one page, maybe one page front and back, but it was an overview of what
To every
we were
household.
asking to every household. We did
Mail,
that snail
hard
mail.
copy.
instructing them to please go to the school district website to complete the survey. So the survey was done electronically, but there was one blast out by snail mail to every resident in the community, or every household. Then we made some extra copies for Borough Hall, for Township Municipal Building, the public library, the same thing. Just please go to our website to complete the survey. And then for the school district families, even though they would have gotten the snail mail as well, we sent reminders asking them to please complete the survey. So that's how we tried to reach everyone that we could.
And you also, district parents like myself can subscribe as well, correct?
Yes.
So there's an opportunity on the district website in the top right where you can subscribe to have information pushed out to you as an email sent out by the Dr. LaSousa or the newsletter. So if you don't want to do any of the other things, you can subscribe and things will get pushed out to you. On the full-day kindergarten tuition, we are charging half of the kindergarten tuition rate. You mentioned the high school tuition rate. I think if the tuition rate for a kindergarten or first grader is $14,000, we're charging half that because the other half of the day is paid for because, they're residents of town, they pay taxes, and that's included, and we offer that to every kindergarten that lives in town. Did you have something else, Mike, on that you want to add?
I think you just nailed it. I would say that last year when we announced what the rate would be after a lot of deliberation and a lot of discussion as a board, there were plenty of parents who told me that they thought that they were being overcharged, that was, that they're sending they live here, they send their children here. 90% of the school districts in the state of New Jersey already have full-day kindergarten at zero charge.
Right.
So the perspective of some parents was that it would be better if it were free. And I think the board, after a lot of discussion and deliberation, came down on this is a tuition-based program. We've been very clear about that. We have published tuition rates that you approve at the annual reorganization meeting. And if we split that amount in half, it would be the fairest thing to the overall number of people. And we also were sure that would be revenue positive for us, maybe not as revenue positive as a $36,000 tuition rate, but still revenue positive so that wouldn't eat into any other part of our operating budget by virtue of offering a full-day program.
Right, and you still have to pay for the teacher. You still have to pay for the resource to run those programs. So it's definitely revenue positive. It's just not $120,000 that's not accounted for or being spent. Okay, very good. Sorry, thank you. If you could introduce yourself. I know you're from Madison, but I just don't know.
Yes. Yeah, I'm Jocelyn Cahoon from 40 Barnesdale, property that's just a stone's throw from Cougar Field. And I'm here today speaking in opposition to the field lights proposal, as you might guess. Some of you, I think, have seen me many times before.
Pardon me,
Sorry.
could you just speak up?
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, just a little closer, thank you.
Eat the mic, yes.
No, thank you.
Okay, anyway, yes, we have a long history of living at Barnesdale, as do many of the neighbors in that area. So we've been around this block a lot. And I just really have to say, do you think we all moved away? We're still here. A lot of the same neighbors are still here. We've been around this block before. We thought this was all settled. Getting into this, as has already been mentioned, can get into high legal costs for everybody involved. That certainly ties up significant school district funds to deal with legal issues that could otherwise go to support educational activities. I think particularly things like theater and stuff like that, many schools are having to cut those sorts of programs in order to cover the basics. For this very reason of these things coming up just as a public comment or as a report, we have a representative here from our neighborhood group almost every meeting, as you probably have seen. It used to be myself a few years back, almost every time, just to stay abreast of what's going on. I have alerted the neighbors on 6 neighboring streets that this proposal did come up at the last meeting, so they're aware of that, and I'm already hearing from them with concerns about lights and noise, as you might imagine. It is even more so a problem in some of the properties post Hurricane Sandy, because what little buffer was there for some of these neighbors before is gone. There were some houses that lost like 25 or more trees behind the house. It's a straight shot looking at the field now, which that cut, granted in the fall and very late, if the leaves are off the trees, you don't have as much sound buffer anyway. But if you've lost that, I mean, you see it. If you walk down the street towards that end of the street, you can see the track, you can see everything that's going on. We can even hear the boom boxes when the kids are having the boom boxes before the games, which, okay, you know, it's a few minutes of pepping up. That's fine. That's not a problem. But it is a sound issue and will be. The generators for the portable lights are very loud. You can actually hear them around the other side of the neighborhood when you walk around the block, hence the number of homes I have contacted in regard to the field lighting proposal. We've basically been putting up with Cougar Weekend as good neighbors. The temporary lights do not meet specs for light spillage and sound. We have a sound meter at home. We check that regularly when things look like they're getting out of hand. Luckily, with some of the adjustments that have been made with the sound system, that doesn't happen anywhere nearly as often as it used to. But it's still loud. You can still hear it all over. The Cougar Weekend is now, it's not just lights on that Friday night or that Saturday night. There have been lights, it was almost a whole week this last time. And certainly the neighbors who are near to that I've heard from first, obviously, were the ones that were most affected. So it's not just a one night type deal anymore. It used to be pretty much that, but I know this last time it was more than that.
Forced us to push the games off.
Yeah, but I think it seemed like it was more than just,
Yeah.
I don't know, it seemed like there were about 3 or 4 nights. I didn't write
No,
it
there
down.
Were. There
but
definitely were because of the storm. But go ahead, I
yeah,
didn't mean to
but
interrupt you.
anyway,
I'm sorry,
but yeah.
Jocelyn.
So where we are now, if what we're seeing now for Cougar Weekend is going to be multiplied by 4 more weekends, that's going to be totally not acceptable to the neighbors. So I strongly suggest that you do contact the neighbors or try and get some feedback as to what's going on should you decide to go forward with anything. There are many new neighbors in the neighborhood. Some of them are now in houses adjacent where there used to be older people living there. Now there's younger people with more younger kids. And in the past, there was always the concern about the noise that went late into the evening with them having kids that were going to bed very early. That was a concern. Some of us, like myself, work late from home. I work more a Pacific schedule or later because of who I work with. And I can hear the generator and the announcer in the bedroom that I work in inside the house with the windows closed, obviously in the wintertime. So I find that distracting. Sometimes it's okay, but it's in the fall,
Okay.
yeah. Well, even during the games, the weekend games now, even without lights, not the weekend, the football games that are played now that are in daylight, that are not in nighttime, where there's, or practices or whatever. I think it's maybe some of the track meets and things like that are announced, or some of the public, what do you call them? The other community programs that are put on at Cougar Field occasionally. I can hear all that stuff inside when the speakers are on. It's not as blaring as it was previously, but it is still there. So I'm basically urging you not to proceed with this proposal. And I thank you for listening to our concerns.
Sure thing. Jocelyn, if you could help us out too. Some of the folks that use our field are Madison neighbors, which is great. There's a walking path, there's a track.
Right.
Some of the folks are also the folks with the dogs, because I followed some back. But if you can
Yeah.
let me finish. Some of your newer neighbors who enjoy our field on Barnesdale, they've actually ruined our fence. They've cut a big giant hole in it. They've ruined the top of it because they're climbing over it, but I guess they've gotten to the point where they don't feel like climbing over it. If you could tomorrow, take a ride over to the top of Cougar and check out the fence that
Which part of the
right
fence
as
is this?
the most extreme corner to Madison. The only access on the Barnesdale and that corner, right by the end zone. If you could take a look tomorrow, and maybe when
Okay.
you poll your neighbors, you can ask them to stop cutting the fence. You'll see
Okay.
it when you go by tomorrow.
Well, I don't know whether it's actually our neighbors that are doing that. There are kids that come through, but I'll certainly mention that.
Yeah, the Chatham kids generally come in the front door. They don't go around through Kings, up, down Barnesdale, and then come up into that cul-de-sac to cut through the fence. So when you say you're polling
Yeah.
your neighbors, my request
Right.
is that when you go back,
Right.
you also to also be respectful. No dogs, you know, and
Yeah, we see
please
lots
stop
of
cutting
dog
the fence.
walkers, but they're all
Please
the
stop
ones we see
cutting
are on
the
leash,
fence on, by Cougar Field, by the end zone on the Madison side.
but- Okay.
Please go take a look at it so that you see
No, I
it for
will.
yourself.
I will.
The top is ruined. We've had to replace that 6 times, and now I notice that they've bring in tools to cut a nice 4-foot section in the fence, which we've had to repair several times.
Okay, well, I'll look and see which neighbor is there and ask the neighbor if they've seen
Okay.
who's gone through. We've had some houses change hands there, and there's been
Sure.
some construction there, so they may have been.
Again, we don't want to lock up that
Kids.
field for anybody. Chatham,
No,
Madison, New
I
Providence,
understand.
it's a nice asset.
Yeah.
Let's all use it, but, you
Yeah.
know,
No, I appreciate your concern. I'll see what I can find out.
that'd be fantastic. I appreciate that. Thank you, Jocelyn. Sure, thank you.
I just want to clarify one thing about the lights issue. There is no Board of Education proposal currently right now to put lights up on the field, so there really isn't a proposal. One of the residents brought up the issue at the last meeting, and we decided to discuss it to see what the concern was that they had, and we'll obviously get feedback from other people concerned on the other side. There is no proposal to put lights up on the field right now. Okay?
Thanks, Mike. Any additional? Oh, sorry.
Hi. Oh, is that good? Thanks. My name is Jill Gallagher. I'm here on behalf of the Chatham Girls Ice Hockey Program team. We are just looking to make sure that we are on the Board of Ed's radar for funding. This is the 4th year of existence of the team. We partnered with Madison for 3 years. Madison was funded last year, and with the concern that they would lose their funding, staying combined, they went out on their own. Chatham has operated, or in the process, we're in season now, of operating as a standalone team. As many of you know, ice hockey is an expensive sport. And we are concerned without funding. This year has been a struggle. It's going to continue to be a struggle. And we're just, again, looking to hope that you have us on your radar for funding. And we'd also like to ask that you provide us with what exactly do you need? What information do you need from us to help you make the decision for that?
Thank you. It was on my board business to talk about the funding, but Mr. Ryan, sorry, I'm going to point to you again I know, sorry about that. You're the man of the hour. So when you do discuss in the finance committee meetings, oftentimes when a program gets, further along and a little bit more mature, while we often can't fund 100% of it, we try and fund something. It might be transportation. It might be, the officials. So what we would probably need from you is your cost, and I can show you an example from the fencing team, the bowling team, the sailing team, the paddle team. They send us a spreadsheet of all of their individual costs. I mean, everything, all of it out there. And then maybe finance can take a look at it and see if there's any room. I'm not asking for an answer now.
We haven't gotten to line items yet.
Okay.
We're really just at the overall, we know we're at 2%.
Mhm.
We have to look at wish lists
Okay.
from everybody and see what we can get done with the revenue that we have coming in.
But that spreadsheet would be helpful, correct?
Yes.
A spreadsheet of expenses, historical expenses, what we're incurring.
Yeah, your transportation, referees, ice
No
time.
transportation.
Yeah.
We're lucky we get there, yeah.
Everything
Okay.
you're
Get a copy of like what paddle and fencing submitted, so you have an idea of what they actually submitted, so
Okay.
you're in.
Yeah.
2.2 seconds.
That's a lot. Okay.
Since most of the information filtered in through Bill Cabrera in the past, in his absence, if you want to send it directly to me, and typically it was, from using sailing and paddle as a history, the number of participants they had for the season and the different expenses, and, that saying this is being raised by, any donations that you're getting or apparent funding. It doesn't have to be super complex, just,
Okay, all right, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. I'm going to close the public commentary section for now. We're a little bit delayed in our agenda, and I feel bad. We have a guest here, so you can bring up something at the second public commentary. So we're just going to move over to action items. Personnel, Ann, I'm going to kick it right over to you.
Yeah, I've like to move action items A1 to A15 on your regular agenda, as well as 6, 16, and 17 on the addendum.
6, 16, and 17.
Correct.
Oh my God.
Addendum. As you all know, we've been in the process of securing a replacement for Mr. Bill Abrera, and on the addendum you will find a recommendation for the appointment of Mr. Mohammed Abdelaziz as the Director of Athletics at Chatham High School. This was a lengthy search process that Mr. Groh and Ms. Grant led. We had upwards of 80 applicants for this position. We had 4 finalists after multiple rounds of interviews, and we had 2 really exceptional people come to a committee that Ms. Ciccarelli participated in. And again, after deliberation, careful consideration, we decided that Mr. Abdelaziz was the best person for the job. He comes to us with experience, having served as athletic director and assistant principal at Orange High School. So he's somewhat familiar to us in terms of the world of athletics, as we've had some contests with Orange. And we're just delighted to have him join us, and we look forward to much success in the field of athletics moving forward. And he is on hand.
Say anything? We want to at least welcome you. Ed wants to get a picture.
Vote first.
Do we vote first?
We can.
Vote on his way to the vote.
Well, yeah, he's slow walking, so we're gonna. He's not feeling. He's got a bit of a cold, so.
I do need a second, though.
I thought Michelle's.
Here, south.
Okay. So we're gonna vote real quick, Mo, and then you can take the mic.
Sure. Agenda items A1 to 15, A6, 16, and 17 on the addendum. Mr. Arnick?
Yes.
Ms. Ciccarelli?
Yes.
Ms. Clark?
I vote yes to everything and no to 13.
Okay. Mr. Ryan?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Valenti?
Yes.
And Ms. Weber?
Yes to everything, no on A13.
Okay, agenda items A1 to 14, addendum items, A1 to 12, 14, 15, addendum items 16, 17, pass 7-0, A13 passes 5-2.
Excellent. Mo, welcome to Chatham. Thank you for participating in the interview process. Thank you, Ann, for stepping in and filling in on the board. If you wouldn't mind just saying a few words and introducing yourself.
Sure, I'm a little under the weather, so I do apologize about my voice, but thank you all very much for this opportunity. I am grateful for the opportunity to be the athletic director for the school district of the Chathams, and I look forward to working with the student athletes and the students who are involved at Chatham High School. Thank you very much, everyone. I look forward to meeting all of you. Have
Excellent.
a great evening.
Welcome aboard. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Mo. We look forward to you helping us, Mo, continue positive opportunities. You don't have to go back to the mic. I know you don't feel well. Just, the board doesn't so much care about wins and losses. We care about a good experience. We care about positive. We care about fostering good communication. As the kids are younger, they look up to their older classmates. As the kids are older, they become leaders. So we look forward to helping you continue that tradition here. Thank you, Mo. Go out, get out of here so you feel better. Good night. Thank you for sticking around. Sorry for the delay. Excellent. Moving along, curriculum. Ms. Clark, do you mind?
I do, but I have to get to that page. I move curriculum. Oh, are we skipping over finance?
Oh, yes, I'm skipping over finance. Sorry, Mr. Ryan. I'm going to pick on you once again. Would you mind moving the finance items?
Sure. Let me just get it out here. I would like to move, excuse me. Sorry. Where are we? B1 through B16 on the regular agenda.
Second.
For facilities. Again, just a reminder, the agendas are posted on Friday, so we read them over the weekend.
Yes.
Are there donations? 10? Hold on.
Just one item on finance. We have a donation of $1,000 to the robotics team.
Oh, wow.
by CACI, Inc.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you for that.
Oh, fantastic.
It's to
Okay.
pay for uniforms,
Oh, perfect.
replacement parts, and other necessary items.
Oh, thank you. That's fantastic. Just in the interest of time, all those in favor of all of the finance items?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? There you go.
Duly noted, passes B1 through B16, passes 7-0.
Fantastic, thank you. Moving on to curriculum.
Curriculum items move to vote are C1 through 3.
1 through 3.
And we can't really talk about them. Second, anyone?
Okay, there's not too much to talk about, so we're going to move right over to the vote. All those in
Second.
favor of moving?
Second, Mike second.
Mike
Valenti.
Ryan did.
Oh, he did,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah. I can't hear.
All those in favor of C1 and to C3? Well-
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Abstain.
Duly noted, passes 601.
601, great, thank you. Policy, Mr. Ryan, back to you.
I'd like to move policy item D1 on the regular agenda.
Second.
Were these mostly,
First readings.
what's that?
First
And
readings.
were they Strauss-Esme
Yes.
recommendations, or did you like add something into the superintendent's duties, like, re-roofing or something? Did you? I read it. It didn't.
Picking up after dogs.
That's right, picking up after dogs in the middle of a field hockey game. It was embarrassing.
We did not. It was all Strauss Esme recommendations.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. All those in favor of D1?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Duly noted, passes 7-0.
Okay, board business. Let's just jumble the agenda a little bit here. Mike, can we talk about start times?
Sure. I don't have an update on that right now.
Well, that was quick.
There you go. Aim to please.
Do you know when you will have more of an update on that?
We've engaged our transportation provider
Okay.
about certain potential changes or hypothetical routes and stacking and so forth, and we're waiting to hear back from
Okay.
them about parameters, what they envision to be realistic and what they might not.
Okay, and you're still, if all the lights are green, shooting for September of 21?
That'd be the goal.
Okay, that would be the goal.
In addition, I'm sure you are talking with your fellow superintendents who are contemplating these same issues.
Yes.
I think we don't want to be operating in a vacuum in terms of scheduling, especially for our after-school activities and whatnot, so kind of somehow keep a pulse on what other people are talking about.
Yes, so I have spoken to some other superintendents who are considering the same move. Mr. Abdelaziz actually works in a high school that begins its day at 8:20 and finishes at 3:30, so he has experience scheduling athletics at a later time frame, or at least a time frame that falls after its school day. And as you all know, the state of New Jersey issued instructions on entering the pilot program because they are now moving forward officially with bringing in middle schools and high schools into a pilot to see how later start times would work in a variety of districts, urban, suburban, rural, and different socioeconomics, et cetera. So those kinds of networking discussions are continuing to happen.
Okay, great. The name change, Peter, I had just asked you to do a cursory look if there's any cost involved.
The main issue of dealing with it is going through the state to change the name, and then dealing with the federal government to change the name on our tax ID number. Most of I don't know if there's any fees that involve with that. I didn't get into the federal government. Most of the I guess expense would be basically a matter of time, of staff time, dealing with completing forms and changing them. Obviously, we do have to go through printing costs for certain of our accounts that have checks and check stock that we have that say the school district of the Chathams. And obviously, I know you said we could complete our stationery. That's not a big deal, but
Right.
the certain check stock would be the big issue.
Okay. Again, this is not a burning
Yeah.
concern. It's just there's some confusion every time. You go to a different database and we're called the school districts of the Chathams versus just Chatham. When you go to a conference, do you say I'm from the school districts of the Chathams, or do you say I'm a BA in Chatham? I would hope you just say Chatham. So the goal is to just simplify it and start saying, We're not the school district of the Chatham Marching Band. We're not the school district of the Chatham's, women's hockey team. We're just Chatham. So if it's going to cost a lot or if it's going to be pain, I don't want to move forward and or even bring it to the board as a formal recommendation, because I don't have to convince 18,000 people. I just have to convince 4. But if it's if it's more trouble than it's worth, then again, it's not a big deal at all.
I will do some. I've been a little distracted with other work priorities. I will
understood.
start making the official.
This is the slowest burn you've ever seen. So not only a
Okay.
back burner, but on the back burner after that.
All right.
Or if sometime down the road we're doing a rebranding for whatever reason, changing our website, that would be a good opportunity to maybe take advantage of that. So then just moving on to the calendars. Mike, I noticed that you have a couple that start before the last week of August, and that allows us to graduate as early as the 9th of June, which is great. You have one version that allows us to have a February break and also start early, but then graduation falls not until the 17th. So calendar 2 starts early but ends very early, which a lot of people clamor for. Folks also clamor for the February break, which we probably haven't seen in a number of years, the full week in February. In order to get that, though, we have to start the school year earlier. We're starting on the 30th in that particular calendar, which would allow us to have the full week, but it would have us graduate on the 17th. Do we have free reign to graduate when we want and get men in arena, or no, that's still not been resolved? Because that's been an issue in the past.
I wouldn't say that we have free reign, but the earlier we graduate, probably the more freedom we have.
Okay. So, for example, in calendar 5, which allows us to have the full February break, that has us graduating on a Friday, which I'm never thrilled at, just because of people that observe the Sabbath on Friday. You have us starting school on the Monday, the 30th. If we back that up, is that Memorial Day weekend right before that? Yeah, sorry. So on calendar 5,
Yeah.
right, I'm just going to... So you have the teachers coming in on the 24th and the 25th, Tuesday, Wednesday, then off Thursday, Friday, and the students coming back the following Monday. Why that Thursday and Friday? Like, why wouldn't you just have the teachers work Thursday, Friday? Is that Labor Day weekend?
It's not Labor Day weekend, but this past year I had gotten some input from the teaching staff about which 2 days of the week they would prefer if they were a week before the students, and the feedback was the Tuesday, Wednesday.
Okay, great.
So I left that, but we can modify
No.
that.
If that that's totally up to them. Whichever days work best for the teachers. So my observations from the calendars on the table is we have to decide. In order to get what everybody wants, a February break and out early, we have to start the school year earlier. And Mike Ryan, Ann and I, we saw a presentation in Atlantic City that I thought was pretty powerful. Maybe we can have a guest speaker come in and talk about the benefits of starting the school year earlier. And in that particular district, everybody was up in arms the first year, and now they would never go back. And he's been doing it for a few years, and it's similar district to ours. So I'd like to discuss starting the school year a little bit earlier, but the trade-off is getting some additional breaks and maybe graduating earlier in the year. Does anybody else have any comments on the?
Yeah, I'd like to comment.
Sure, thanks, Sal.
So my kids are pretty much, all my kids are out of the district right now, but I've done the parent on the Jersey Shore during the summer, and I'm just going to speak anecdotally. Parents are coming up mid-August anyway. Kids start sports, football, soccer,
clubs,
and by that part of the summer, summer's getting long in the tooth.
Bite your tooth. Bite your tongue.
Spring Lake lady. In the same vein, at the end of the year, the further you go into June, boys are thinking about girls and sports and springtime, and well, that's a pretty sexist thing to say, but I'm sorry, their attention, all of the children's and the students' attention after Memorial Day seems to be diminished the further you go into June. So there's, it doesn't seem to me that finishing earlier in June is such a bad idea. So I wanted to just make those two comments. Parents are already bringing their kids back up in mid-August anyway. That's anecdotally, but maybe we need more facts.
So I did speak with that superintendent, Ms. Weber, recently. He actually shared with me that this year there's even more compelling data that he didn't have in the presentation about college admissions and college applications and so forth. If you recall, I believe they've been starting about August 24th. So calendar 3 here has the students beginning August 23rd, and the final day of school is June 7th, which is exactly 1 week after Memorial Day. So we would have only 1 week after Memorial Day.
No, not on calendar 3.
Yes, there is. It's not a full week, but it's 5 days.
Four-day weekend.
It's a 4-day weekend.
It's a 4.5-day weekend.
Okay.
Yeah. It's kind of long.
So
Right.
I put in 5 options that kind of touch on everything, including one that I don't think the students come back until September. So you know where I stand on what I think would be the best in the long run.
Right.
So I have connected with that superintendent to see if there's a date he can come in and kind of deliver a
That would be
truncated version of what he did in
Yeah.
Atlantic
I
City.
hate
Just
to pull him out
give
at night, but if he's willing, that would be great. What was most compelling to me, and I don't know if Mike and Ann agree, we were pretty much Massachusetts and New Jersey, the only 2 states in the country that start as late as we do,
Mhm.
which I was shocked. I mean, when he put up the map, I was absolutely shocked.
Mhm.
Can I just, calendar 3, I have a hard time asking our teachers to come back on August 17th. So I'm just going to say that out loud. I think we could look, and I think we also need to do a slow transition to an earlier start time and not kind of jump to the extreme. The other thing, has there been any consideration by the administration to look at those some of those June days and make them half days for students and full days for teachers, to give teachers time to do their end of the year progress reports, to be able to meet as grade levels and set goals for the following year and do some professional development at that time?
we
So-
did add that. We did add that
Because there
a
are
year, 2 years ago, maybe. So the
Okay.
second to last day of school is a half day for kids, but a full day for staff. Then the last day of school, of course, is a half day, but staff are
Right.
permitted to stay as long as they need to wrap up.
Right, but when you look at, let's be real, the last day of school, it's
Mhm.
over. So if you look at, I'm just trying to pick one calendar, so I'm just going to calendar 3, I guess, or no?
Sure.
Calendar 5. Okay, so you're looking at the week of June 14th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th. So even if you looked at, like, say, Wednesday the 15th, 16th, 7th, so 17th already is, early dismissal of students, it's the 16th teacher still there, and maybe add in possibly another one. I want to believe that there's high-quality instructional time going on June 15th, 3 days before the end of the school year, but I know, I can speak for my classroom, we're wrapping it up at that point, you know, and we're just sending it off. So I just think if we can kind of consider our staff and our students and look at all the stakeholders when looking at these calendars and kind of think what's best for everyone.
Mike, what, do you prefer 5,
I prefer 3.
3? And why is
I
that?
just-
I just want to, I'm just trying
I-
to distinguish, Ann's perspective and your perspective to try to get some
I
of
think
my own perspective based on 2 people in the profession.
Sure. So first off, I think that the fewer days you have after Memorial Day, the better off you are. I think that the quality of instruction is better on the front end of the year than it is deep into June when it's hot and for whatever reason students are distracted. It's tougher as a former teacher to keep the students focused on June 15th as it is on September 15th. One of the things you will hear if that superintendent joins us is that starting the year earlier reduces a lot of stress and pressure around college admissions. And the more time you have before the fall deadlines, whether it's November 1st or November 15th or early action that's rolling or whatever it might be, the more days that you have contact with students at the high school level prior to that time, the more you can reduce some of the pressure cooker. Like Sal mentioned, almost half of our students at the high school are coming back here in mid-August, and I mean about August 10th on. It's around when football begins. But all of the fall sports, all of the activities, marching band, all of that begins to ramp up. So you've got, half of our high school students who are essentially back in school activities at that time. And if we started the year early, you're right, there would be some complaining about that for sure, the first year. But if the last full week of school is the week of Memorial Day, there are going to be a lot of happy people in June. A lot of people on June 15th are going to be pretty happy that they're a week deep into the summer already, and there's a different rental, opportunity for the shore or other, summer activities. We have plenty of students who do internships or college orientations that end up taking place now in June. We've been dealing with an issue with our high school teachers this past week, where a number of them are invited to be AP readers. The readings for AP exams happens June 1st in other states like Texas, Ohio, Colorado, and those staff members, if they're going to participate and have the benefit of that experience, they have to miss a week of school in June. So there are a lot of reasons, and I'd even mention that you end up with more instructional time for AP exams or for state tests if you have more days of instruction prior to March or April or May, depending on when the test is. So from an alignment standpoint, I think it makes much more sense to bring people back as close to August 15th as possible.
Michelle, you mentioned not wanting to bring the teachers back in August for that calendar. Why is that?
I just think it's really early. I think it's smack in the middle of August. That's just my feeling.
I value your perspective.
She's concerned about your feelings.
As a teacher. No,
I know you guys.
I just wanted to.
Well, I would say a strong percentage, I would say a very high percentage of our teachers do not live in Chatham. And they have their own families and their own children and their own obligations outside of this community other than their job. And so this could, coming back, if we come back on the 17th and you have your family and you're off for the summer and your children are not in school, you now have a hardship.
I respect that.
So that's just one thing I think we need to
most
consider.
people in Chatham, to include the people who commute into New York City every day and other
Yeah.
places, don't work here either. They have to get on a train, they have to get in a car, they
I
have to
agree.
drive to work, and that's why they get paid.
Yes,
And
I
we
agree,
want-
but
no,
my
and I'm
feeling
not-
is that's just to me, starting school on the teachers starting that. What I would prefer in a calendar is start the week after, the week of the 24th. That's preferable to me.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I disagree with you, I just,
I just think it's an early start for teachers. That's it. And I like calendar, is it one? Oh, the staple didn't work, it fell. But
we have
we have
professional
time to talk
development.
about this. We don't have to decide this right
Yeah,
now.
I'm just
saying.
trying to get an
Yeah, I think
understanding from
that's-
both of your perspectives.
I
because
think
they're
that's
important.
early. Yeah, no, I just think that's early for teachers to
got
report.
it.
That's just my feeling.
No, I understand.
Are you guys done with your feelings conversation?
We're done with our feelings.
Okay.
We respect each other.
All right. A quick question, Mike. What was the answer on the June 1st?
It's supposed to be the 31st.
Okay, the 31st. Okay, I figured it was a typo. So we could take a look.
July 4th, what are you doing?
Bradley, did you have something you want to jump in on the feelings conversation, or you're good? You're good there. So we can maybe stew on these a little bit. We typically don't vote on the 2 years out calendar until I think June has been the generally what we've been doing. But I think there's some opportunity to merge some of these in an effort to not jump all the way in, start on the 23rd. But as Ann pointed out,
Maybe take a shorter break,
yeah, take a shorter break in February, but back this up.
like to the 10th.
I think there's
or
a combination
something,
of 3 and 5,
Yeah.
shortening the February break to make it look more like
Yes.
3 and 4. I think we can kind of achieve a little bit of everything, starting on the 23rd, having the teachers come back when they prefer, a 4-day or 5-day weekend in February break, and yet,
Graduating on like the 10th.
right, trying to graduate earlier in that week or even the week before, ideally the week before. Again, my preference is to always avoid a Friday, but if it can't be done, so be it.
Can I add, there's another.
If Dr. LaSousa could make everyone happy, we'll send them to Washington.
Yeah, right.
But we could do an
for the
option
next
six
election.
in Malcolm.
Whoop,
Question
sorry.
without an answer, but is there a consideration for local businesses downtown? So for example, August is a ghost town in Chatham.
Well, August 1st through the 15th, is-
Um,
right? Because a lot of folks come back,
Yeah, August 1st, yeah, that's true. Okay,
as you pointed out.
wait, I'm gonna pass.
Okay. Okay, so we're gonna work these through, and if you have suggestions, we'll send them to you, or we'll bring it up at the next meeting. I'm sure if folks have comments, they'll let us know. They can certainly email us, but I think there's a way to achieve what we're trying to achieve, and if that superintendent can join us, I think that would be powerful. And anything that reduces stress would be, enormously helpful. I mean, just to address the elephant in the room, we have heard time and time again since these last 6 months how many teen suicides in our surrounding area. We have to jump on that bandwagon to stop that. If this is one way to reduce stress, I will take every single angry email if it's going to reduce some of the stress that's causing these kids to commit suicide.
That's a great point. We were just, all kidding aside, we were having a little sidebar on that. What's best for the students at the end of the day? What's best for the students? Not everybody, to include the administration, the parents, what's best for the students? I think that's something we need to highlight and think about.
I think the presentation, if we can get the
Yeah, I said the
superintendent
same
in,
thing, get him.
it would be enormously helpful. And again, I hate to drag him out at night, but if he's willing to help us out, since he has experience, and they're into their second or third year of a earlier calendar, correct? And again, they wouldn't go back. Talking to some of the parents in that district and some of the staff in that district, they wouldn't go back to how it used to be. So Mike, you'll let us know if you can secure that speaker, and then maybe we can try and jigger some of these calendars a little bit, based on what the feedback you've heard, combining 3 and 5 a little bit.
Sure. Yep.
And then talk to your administration about, half days toward the end of the year, what will work. Does anybody else have, I don't want to take up too much time on the calendar since we're not going to be voting on that until June. Okay, excellent. Does anybody else have any additional board business? No, we have our second opportunity for public commentary. If you wouldn't mind stepping up to the mic. And just a reminder, we have a brief executive session. Sorry, Mike, I'm calling an audible on this one. Dr. LaSousa didn't know about that, but I would like to have a brief executive session. I promise not to keep you too long.
I'm back.
Floor is yours, Mr. Heap.
I will be brief. I know everybody wants to get home to watch The Bachelor. So I'm going to push back a little bit against the full-day kindergarten. Dr. LaSousa mentioned that people were calling him up and seemed to be offended that they had to pay tuition. I have no sympathy for those folks. These are folks who haven't conducted their due diligence. They come into town, they find out that there isn't a full-day kindergarten, and I'm sure they go ballistic, and you bear the brunt of that. But it's not an argument. It seems to me that we have a budget, we have a number of students, you divide the budget by the number of students, you come up with a cost per student. We can argue back and forth about the nuances of whether one student or one group of students should cost more than another group of students. But it is a cost per student, and it just seems to me that we ought to be charging half of whatever that cost is. I'm shocked at this point that nobody in Trenton has, in order to score political points, proposed a full-day kindergarten, but for whatever reason they haven't. It's just amazing to me that it hasn't been done. So these folks really have to step up and realize that. It's just the way it is. Thanks.
I know this isn't a Q&A, and I don't want to extend this, but, as Dr. LaSousa said, trying to, in the interest of reasonableness, coming to common ground and, a number that we all talked about, we think it's a reasonable approach. Do you think it's reasonable to place a large budget number on a young family that are educating their kids? Because there are benefits for the taxpayers who don't have children in school, right? I think. Right, when the school system is
We're
ranked
talking
so high.
about cost, and it seems to me that people should be assuming their fair share. One of the reasons people are moving here is because we are, at this point, a bargain.
Yes.
And I'm not sure how long it's going to stay a
and
bargain, but
someday
we are a
my-
bargain.
And someday, like all of us, my children will be out of school. And, quite frankly, buying a house in Chatham and having a great school system has been a tremendous financial boom to me and my family, because my, real estate has appreciated dramatically. over the last 25 years. I don't think I could have gotten a better investment. So I think all of the people who don't have children in the school system benefit greatly.
I'm not saying I don't benefit. I'm
No,
just,
no, I
we're
know, but
trying to
I'm
assign
just-
costs.
I understand, but I'm just giving you the other side of the argument. So as opposed to putting a burden on a young family with a number that's very high, I think what Dr. LaSousa is saying is that we're trying to be reasonable and meet, come to a middle ground where that number works for all, to include the taxpayers.
Well, Mike will have to mud wrestle on this one because I don't really think it is high. I think it's something that people are willing to pay for. And when you look at the competition in the neighborhood, we're a bargain.
People don't send their kids to Ken Place. It's a different expectation.
That's correct. That's why they're here.
For $32,000 a year. You're comparing apples and oranges. You can't compare the motivations of people who send their children to Ken Place to our kindergarten. It's just a different ethos, if you will. But it's a discussion that we could have offline. I don't want to,
Okay,
beat a
next
dead
time you
horse.
walk by my house, I'm going to tackle you and we'll
Well,
continue the discussion.
You could stop me,
okay?
but I wouldn't suggest tackling me, Bill. You may not like the result.
Okay, thanks.
They are neighbors. Let me remind you, Mr. Valenti is a law enforcement officer for over 30
And
years.
Bill's a great neighbor.
Oh, my God.
And just before, Jill, sorry, I hate to do this, but I have to channel Matt Gilfillan. A school district is the absolute worst business model possible. We have a fixed revenue of 2%, and we have variable expenses that have no cap. So it's broken from the get-go. And we don't offer programs because they're money makers. We don't run the school play because it's going to make money. We run the school play as an extracurricular activity that has tremendous value to the students. We're running full-day kindergarten because we believe as a board and administration that a full-day kindergarten program is beneficial to the students. So not everything that we do is to generate revenue. So we can argue the point about it, but I agree with Mr. Valenti. We're not going to gouge residents and charge $35 for full-day kindergarten when we can offer it within the budget, make it cost positive without being offensive. I mean, we can argue it back and forth, but that's where we're going in this direction right now, at least for this year, until such time that we have enough space and enough revenue to offer full-day kindergarten and it be included in the residents' taxes. The goal is to be able to offer full-day kindergarten to everybody in town, not run a lottery, and have it be available to everybody. Sorry.
That's okay. Hi, Megan Tavermina. I just, to go back to the calendar, just don't envy anybody's position. I don't think there is a situation that will please everybody. But I heard, and I love the idea of through the lens of the students, that's what we should be looking at. But I heard bouncing about around a little bit about the half days, and I was just wondering if there's any consideration about how much harder it is for parents and children on those half days versus days off, whereas there's no place really for the children to go on a half day. There are no camps if you're a working parent, if you have young children, and so piling too many of those up can really be a burden as far as scheduling. So, and then the continuity of instruction. So I know like my children don't necessarily think that half days are really days of school. They're more of just kind of coming to school. So balancing that with all of the stuff that teachers have to do is an tremendous problem, and I don't have the solution, but just when I heard that kind of popping up, to maybe be a little cautious of too many half days for continuity of instruction, also for families to try and manage it. So that was it.
Thank you.
I did.
Way ahead of you. Any additional public commentary? Mrs. Alaco, you haven't been to a board meeting in ages. I was away every once in a while. My paying job makes me do other things. But okay, so I make a motion to close the public session, and board is going to meet. No action will be taken. On